Hello, loves! Welcome to Murder Mystery Monday. We have been going through the book Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter to solve a 20-year-old cold case. It's been very fun so far. We've officially reached episode 4 in the book. It doesn't go by chapters, it goes by episodes because the whole cold case is being documented through a fictional TV show. So everything you read is listed out in interview documentation format. You have actual pieces of evidence that you can view and an entire team of investigators with all sorts of personalities, some of them conflicting, and we're doing our best to put the pieces together. I actually wasn't sure if I was gonna go live tonight because it's just been a hectic couple weeks. I will be sharing why in a vlog in the middle of the week, probably Wednesday or Thursday. The vlog is almost done, so I should have it up on time. But in the meantime, let's catch up on where we left off last episode. I think I mentioned what percentage we were on, and that is 53%. I love Kindles because they tell you how far you have to go. And we also have a clue board. I'm very proud of this. This is my pride and joy. This is where we keep all of our information, anything with clues or just random facts that we feel like are important but don't have reason to call a clue yet. Let me run you through what we know so far. Our victim is Luke Ryder. I hesitated because we've recently learned that's not his real name. We thought his real name was Eric Fulton until we learned last episode that that's not his real name either. He is in fact a serial identity thief. So he steals people's identities, not for a living, but as a habit. We don't know why. We don't know what he's running from. But for the sake of trying not to confuse everyone, we'll just keep calling him Luke. Let's see, how do I want to start the explanation? Let me start by reading the book description first. And for anybody who tuned in last week, the clue board was not working. It was a very easy fix, and had I known what to do, I could have done it live instead of having you not be able to see the board. But this week, I'd made sure you can. This is a shocking thriller about a cold case, a fictional true crime series, and the family caught in the middle. 6 episodes, 1 killer. We're currently on episode 4, so only 2 episodes to go after this. It was a case that gripped the nation. In December 2003, Luke Ryder, the stepfather of acclaimed filmmaker Guy Howard, then aged 10, was found dead in the garden of their suburban family home. Luke Ryder's murder has never been solved. Everyone present around the time of the murder swears they saw nothing. Despite a high-profile police investigation and endless media attention, no suspect was ever charged. But some murder cases are simply too big to forget. Now comes the sensational new Netflix series, Infamous, dedicated to investigating and perhaps cracking this famous cold case. The production team will re-examine testimony, re-interview witnesses, and once again scour the evidence. The family will speak, the key players will be reunited on camera. The truth will come out. Are you ready to see it? Dun dun dun. So what we need to know about our lovely victim is this. We have a family tree, which has been very helpful. We start out with Amanda and Andrew. They were married. Amanda had a suspicious death. She died under mysterious circumstances. I believe it was a car crash. And they together had a son named Rupert. Andrew married Caroline Farrow, who was the family's au pair, so Rupert's nanny. Andrew married the nanny. Caroline was a lot younger than him. And together they had Mara, Amelie, and Guy. Guy is our director, producer of the infamous show. So at the time of the murder with Luke, he was 10 years old. He was 10 years old when Luke died because Andrew, good old Andrew, died of a heart attack Again, a little bit mysterious and suspicious. Caroline then met Luke Ryder, who was Rupert's friend. I think from college days. Everything's getting fuzzy now. This is why I have a clue board. And then through Rupert, Luke and Caroline met, hit it off, and got married. They didn't have any kids, but apparently Luke sort of unofficially adopted the others. What we know is that, according to this injury document, he was hit once behind the head and a lot of times in the face. So my working theory is someone snuck up behind him, hit him in the head, either knocked him out cold or incapacitated him long enough to finish the job. Something else we know is, let me scoot down, I'll come back up to these in a minute, is a timeline of the day of the murder. So at 8:35, Caroline leaves to drive Guy to school, and the girls go on foot. 9 a.m., the cleaner arrives, named Beatrice Alves. 9:15, Caroline returns to the house. 9:46, phone call from dry cleaner. Not suspicious. And I'm not saying that facetiously. 11:15 a.m., Caroline leaves for lunch. 2 p.m., Alves leaves. 2:37, mysterious phone caller. Lasted 2 minutes, 33 seconds. Too long to be a wrong number. We don't know who this is. It was tracked to a payphone. But again, this was 2003, so technology wasn't quite as good, and apparently there weren't any cameras around that payphone, so we don't know who made the call. But the fact that it lasted over 2 minutes, probably we can assume that Luke knew them. 2:45, Caroline returns from lunch. 3:30, Caroline leaves to collect dry cleaning and pick up Guy from school. 4:15, Mara and Amelie return from school. 4:45, girls leave for party. 7 p.m., girls leave party. 7:15, girls have pizza. 8:15, Caroline took girls to the movies in Notting Hill. Not sure what time this happened, but Caroline eventually returns home. They had a drinks party that they were planning to go to, until Luke all of a sudden decides at the last minute he doesn't want to go. I think it was due to that little mysterious phone call, but we don't know that for sure. We can give our best guess. At 9 p.m., Caroline leaves for drinks party alone. 9:30, Guy, who's 10 at the time, remember, is sent to bed by Luke. Now, this is interesting because Guy had been promised by his mother that he could stay up to watch this special show. It was a Friday night. He didn't have school the next day, so he was allowed to stay up a little later. But Luke sent him to bed anyway, early, so he never got to finish his show. Probably because he was going to meet this mysterious phone caller. Caroline is seen at the same time at the party talking with the party hostess, Phyllis. So she's accounted for. 9:35 to 10:20, sometime in there, the murder occurred. At 10:30, Mara and Amelie returned home from the movies. Their neighborhood is very walkable, so they walked home. 10:52, Mara called Caroline at drinks party about the murder. At 11:30, police arrive at party to retrieve Caroline. Now, one of you noticed that there was a 22-minute discrepancy between the time Mara and Amelie returned home and then called about the murder. Some of that can be accounted for just getting home, settling in, maybe grabbing a snack, that kind of thing. But 22 minutes? The house isn't that big. Speaking of the house, we have blueprints. I love blueprints. This is the neighborhood that we're working with. Dorney Place is the house. The cinema is over here. Holland Park Primary is Guy's school, and St. Anne and St. Angus School is where Amelie and Mara attend. Over here, we've got a layout of the house grounds. We've got the driveway, the terrace. I can't read what that says. Old stable, I think, stable block. There are steps here, and the body was found near the steps. There's also a little pond and a tennis court. Oh, and a paddock, because who doesn't need a paddock in their backyard? We also have a blueprint of the house interior. We haven't had to look at this yet, but it's feeling very Clue game to me, and I'm hoping this will become relevant in the future. very soon. Now, some things that I noted last episode is that Mara and Amelie are hiding things. Therapy, school fire. They hinted at that at the very end of the episode. They always leave on a cliffhanger, which I personally love. Guy, the director, who was at the house at the time of the murder, also has things hidden in his past, but we don't quite know what they are yet. Layla is one of our investigators. Her maiden name is Khan, which is relevant. I forget why at this very moment, but it's relevant. I'll remember in a minute. It has something to do with a connection to Luke and his past, I believe. Mitchell, who's another investigator in our team, has a personal connection with the family, which we did not know before. And that's important information to know because he was actually at the scene of the crime. He was outside the property. That's where the police found him when they showed up. And it was explained away, but not enough to my satisfaction. And then this just has piqued my suspicion antenna all over again. Speaking of our investigative team, let me zoom out a bit so you can see it better. Our investigative team includes the slightly grumpy older Alan Canning. He's a retired senior police officer. Mitchell Clark, who was seen at the scene of the crime. He's a freelance journalist. Hugo Fraser is a handsome attorney. I know he's handsome because he has made the Sexiest Man Alive attorney version of the magazine 3 times running. It's the attorney version, and apparently they love him over there. Layla is our only lady on the team. She is a forensic and clinical psychologist. JJ Norton is the slightly nerdy forensic investigator. And then William R. Serafini Jr. is a private investigator from New York. Our suspects as they are right now, and this is where I need audience participation from you. We only know what we know, and as I'm reading this out loud, in case you didn't know and you're new, I read this out loud because not everybody has their own copy. Happy to do it. It allows me to use my fun little talent of doing different accents. Love it. But it also means that I'm absorbing the information at a slower rate. So if there's anything you feel is suspicious or important to note, comment it. Please. Please interact. It's a lot more fun that way anyway. But our suspects, as we have them right now, unless you guys add any more in the comments, is Mara. She waited 22 minutes after finding the body to call Caroline about the murder. She also has been very hesitant to share information in her interviews. Almost every time she's interviewed, we get a text conversation at the end of the episode. I don't know how we're supposed to have access to that unless their brother Guy is pulling it for the show's benefit. But it's a private conversation between the two sisters, and they are clearly holding something back. So that makes me a little suspicious that Mara knows and maybe is she is part of the situation in more ways than we know. Obviously, the mystery caller is a suspect, huge suspect, but we have no name or face to attach to it, so there it sits. Rupert Howard is the oldest brother, half-brother to Mara, Amelie, and Guy. He has no apparent motive. He insists he wasn't in London at the time of the crime and looked genuinely surprised when he learned that Luke wasn't actually Luke. Caroline Howard, we thought she was a person of interest for a hot minute, but it's basically been proven that she most likely had nothing to do with it. First of all, she was seen at a different location around the time of the murder and is accounted for. She also didn't really have a motive, so we're thinking she's clear. Obviously, at this point, we can't rule anyone out, but just using common sense. Now, hello, Emma. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Glad you could make it. I hope you have something cozy to sip on. I don't have something cozy necessarily, but I have something very autumn. I'm an Olipop and Poppy lover, and they have a crisp apple flavor that basically tastes like carbonated apple cider. It's so good. So now that we have been caught up on everything we've learned, shall we dive in? Let me just refresh myself on the last name thing, the Khan last name, because I know there was an important thing. It's Layla's maiden name. Let me find it. From Mitchell Clark. So Mitchell, who was seen at the scene of the crime, is contacting Layla through email. Hi Layla, sorry to bother you at the weekend, but there was just something I wanted to check with you. It's about Muhammad Khan, that student in Sydney. I just stumbled over a paper you gave at a conference back in 2002 before you got married. Your maiden name is Khan. Was Khan, right? I realize it's a common name, so I assume it's just a coincidence. Hope you don't mind me asking. Apparently Khan is like Smith. So it's not... Oh, I'm trying to remember who Muhammad was. I think he was a student that took his life, I think. If you guys remember from last episode, please remind me. It is so hard to keep all of these facts in your head. That's why I have the clue board. We start off this episode with a newspaper clipping, as always. Home is where the hurt is. The real insight of Infamous is what it tells us about family relationships by Ross Leslie. Infamous, Who Killed Luke Ryder, showrunner. Keep it in the family, Netflix. Tolstoy was wrong. If this series of Infamous proves anything, it's that all unhappy families fall apart in similar ways, however wealthy or advantaged they may appear to be. You only had to look at images of the haunted faces of Caroline Howard, Ryder's children, in the years following their stepfather's murder to know that money just serves to paper over the cracks. Behind the anonymous walls of that huge Camden Hill house, children were acting out to the point of petty criminality and being sent for professional therapy. Some of these revelations were distinctly uncomfortable to watch, and at the same time, the whole thing was, of course, utterly compelling. The unfolding psychological drama continues to be underpinned by a succession of new discoveries about the dead man at the heart of the case, a man, as we discovered last night, whose true identity still eludes us. To continue the domestic dysfunction theme, the latest offering from Netflix is Keep It in the Family, adapted from a 2022 novel by John Smart. Oh, that's not relevant. It cuts off mid-sentence. We also have a little chat forum. This is always full of grenades, and by grenades I mean swear words. So I always have to do a lot of self-editing as I read. Okay, so first up, obvious question. Has anyone found out anything about this Eric Fulton guy? I've been digging ever since they gave us the name. Just the basics so far. Hey, True Crimer, you were pretty skeptical about Serafini last time. What did you think about his story about the tattoo thing? That it was that put him onto the identity swap. If you don't remember, Serafini, who's the New York private investigator, discovered that Luke was not Luke because the real Luke had a tattoo, and the Luke we knew to be Luke Ryder didn't have any tattoos. On the face of it, it makes sense, but in my opinion, you wouldn't even start looking at the guy's tattoos unless you already suspected the IDs had been switched. So what put him onto it in the first place? That's the real question. So do we think Caroline knew or not about the imposter thing? Personally, no. Absolutely she did. Had to. I agree. Remember that thing in the last episode about her claiming she always knew when he was lying? She knew. You can interpret that the other way, though, i.e. she thought she knew whenever he was lying, but this proves that she was just deluding herself. You have to feel sorry for that bloke Canning, don't you? There's Big Bill strutting about creaming the whole thing, while poor old Al's left trying to chase down secondhand cars. What a bummer. Good call for them to get forensics run again. In fact, I can't believe the Met haven't done that already. On second thought, of course they haven't. It's the Met. Duh. Incidentally, I'm feeling pretty smug that Hugo Boss obviously agrees with me about follow the money. Keep an eye on old Mrs. Ryder's cash. We haven't heard the last of that, you mark my words. Agreed. Keep an eye on that guy Ian Wilson, too. That'd be my take. So if you don't remember, Mrs. Wilson is the real Luke Ryder's grandma. Fake Luke Ryder decided to pay her a visit because he found out that Luke was in line to inherit quite a lot of money from her. So he went to the nursing home, charmed everybody, charmed the grandma, and got himself put into the will. But the catch is, if he died, he doesn't get the money, which is why we can cross out Caroline as a suspect most likely, because even if she wanted the money and killed Luke for it, she would never have gotten it, even though she was his wife. So something to keep in mind. Oh, the forum continues. We have a second page. That never happens. You love Olipop too? Me too. What's your favorite flavor? I really like the orange one and the apple cider one, but there's also a third that I always grab. Can't remember what it is. Olipop has a lot of good flavors. That Sylvia from the care home was a right grasping, sneaky cow, too. Sylvia was the grandmother's friend. She worked at the nursing home and basically cared for the old woman and got herself a little inheritance, too, of some really fancy jewelry. The thing I'm finding most interesting is the team's reactions as they discuss the new material. Some of them seem way more emotional about some of it than you'd have expected, or is it just me? No, I agree. I wish we had some footage of Luke / Eric / whatever his name is. Wouldn't you just love that bloke off faking it to have a go at him? Cliff Lansley? Yes. Talk about Clash of the Titans. Heads up here, you guys. Major discovery. Someone got in touch with me via email last night after the show. She didn't want to come on here, but what she told me was pretty big. She says she met Amelie Howard in 2012 in rehab. Amelie is Mara and Guy's sister. She was calling herself Emma, not Amelie, but apparently it was definitely the same person. Really? Rehab? As in drugs? Right, full-on opioid detox, apparently. Oh, crap, that poor kid. But that's 10 years after the murder. Not sure how that's relevant. I think the relevance would depend on how early the drug use started. Though the thing about the damage at the school was interesting / possibly significant in the context. So what we learned at the end of the episode last week is that Amelie was involved somehow, some way in a school fire. I don't know if she caused it. It sounded like, from her point of view, it was an accident. To be determined. Now, those private schools, spilling your teacher's GAT would probably be classified as damage. Not as bad as trashing your mom's wedding cake. Oh yeah, we learned that Guy totally smashed the wedding cake at Luke and Caroline's wedding when they got married. Guy was apparently not a fan of Luke, especially not a fan of him marrying his mom. All the same, drugs could be more important than we've previously thought. What I mean is, this is the first time anyone's mentioned that Mara had friends with drug connections at the time of the murder. Maybe that's what's at the heart of this? I.e., not Amelie, but Mara's dodgy mates. Maybe even a drug deal gone bad? Not sure how it would have gone down in practice, but has to be worth considering. Yes, but even though we didn't know Mara had those connections, the police must have. Surely they'd have checked that out at the time. I thought the psych stuff was really interesting this time, the Peter Pan thing. I agree. I looked up the Nevada women they mentioned too. Kathy Augustine? Awful case. The husband injected her with a paralytic called I'm gonna butcher that. Succinylcholine? That was terrible. I apologize. Took her 10 minutes to die and she was conscious the whole time, the jerk. I've been Googling that stuff. Never heard of it before. Apparently it's only used in hospital settings, so hard to get a hold of, but He was a nurse, so would have known all about it. Yeah, and if you don't know what to look for, it can look just like a heart attack. Is that a nod back to whatever the first husband's name was? Was his name Andrew? Caroline's first husband? Because he died of a heart attack. And I always thought that was suspicious. It also metabolizes really quickly after death, so it's almost impossible to trace in an autopsy. Basically, if a couple of nurses hadn't smelt a rat and taken samples from Augustine while she was still alive, the cops would never have nailed him. And then the conversation ends. Okay. Black frame. Text appears with voiceover. Narrator. Female. On the night of October 3rd, 2003, Luke Ryder's body was found in a garden in the upscale district of London, West 8. He was 26 and a native of Calgary, Western Australia. Or at least, that's who he said he was. But we now know that the man passing himself off as Luke had used at least one other identity and may have been a serial con man. Did something in the real Luke Ryder's past come back to haunt the man who stole his name? Or did someone he had wronged track this imposter down, intent on exacting a terrible revenge? Fade out. Cut to Guy in the studio, sitting with Nick. Nick Vincent, producer. You said at the beginning that you didn't want to play an active role in this film, that even though you're the director, you wanted the team to be free to follow the investigation wherever it led. Why have you decided to go in front of the camera again now? Guy Howard. So much has come out since we started this process, and even since I last said anything myself on screen, that it's probably time that viewers heard the family take on all this. In particular, how far the Luke we knew tallies with, or is changed by, what the team's now discovered. Nick Vincent, producer. And where do you all stand? Guy Howard. Well, as you heard in an earlier episode, I was finding it hard to believe that Luke was actually a man called Eric Fulton, who was 11 years older than he claimed. But if the team's right, Eric Fulton was just one more in what could be in any number of stolen identities. I guess we may never know who he really was, or how old he was for that matter. Though I won't deny it's unsettling, even all these years later, to find we had a complete stranger in the house all that time. Someone we now discover we knew absolutely nothing about, not even his name. Nick Vincent. The picture that seems to be emerging is of someone who may have defrauded a whole series of women. Clearly we have yet to gather any actual evidence to back that up, but it seems a reasonable hypothesis. What's your reaction to that? Do you think your mother was going to be his next victim? Guy Howard. I have to admit I'm struggling with that one too. Right up until she got ill, Mum was always a really strong character. I just don't see her as a victim. And Luke didn't behave like that sort of predator. Not that I can remember. I mean, yes, she did buy him things, most notably that Harley, but she never gave him large sums of money. And as her friends have told the team, as far as Mum knew, he stood to inherit a pile of cash of his own. He didn't need her money. Nick Vincent. Though that sort of setup is a standard MO for certain types of fraudster. Look at the whole Anna Delvey story a few years back, or those supposedly rich men who've tricked women on dating apps like Tinder. The fraudster poses as filthy rich, but claims they're temporarily unable to access any of the money. So it's the old, I just need your help with this minor cash flow issue story. Guy. True, but like I said, I don't think Luke ever asked my mother for money in that sort of way. I'm pretty sure there were no big payments to him at all while they were married. She gave him stuff, not cash. Nick Vincent. The other issue I wanted to raise with you is what Shirley Booker said, especially about how you three children felt about Luke. She said you loathed him. Guy Howard. She was talking about Amelie. Nick Vincent. Yes, you're right, she said Amelie disliked him the most, but she said you loathed him too. You even wrecked the wedding cake. Guy Howard, roaring with laughter. I have absolutely no memory of doing that. Nick Vincent. All the same, I have to ask you, why haven't you said any of this before? Guy Howard. To be fair, I think I have. I said I didn't like him. I don't think it was ever loathing as such. Nick Vincent. Shirley, sorry, I read that wrong. Shirley said that, according to Caroline, you became unmanageable, so destructive that these days you would be diagnosed with ADHD. Guy Howard laughs again. Mum is always a bit of a drama queen. See above, under cake. Nick Vincent. Shirley also told us all 3 of you kids went to therapy. Is that true? Guy Howard, his face closing. That's not something I'm prepared to talk about on screen. Nick Vincent. Okay, fair enough. So what about your sister's relationships with Luke? We still haven't been able to talk to Amelie directly. Did she really hate him as much as Shirley Booker claimed? Guy, after a pause. I suppose, of the 3 of us, she disliked him the most. I guess that much is accurate. Nick Vincent. Do you know why? Guy Howard shrugs. Search me. As far as I remember, she took an instant dislike to him, and it only got worse, but don't forget I was only 10 at the time. There could have been subtleties I was missing. Nick Vincent. What about Mara? Guy Howard. I think she mainly just stayed out of his way. She was at that age. All adults were a pain, whoever they were. But why don't you ask her? Nick Vincent. In fact, we did. She wasn't that keen to talk to us again, but she did eventually agree. Cut to Mara, in her room in the old stable block at Dorney Place. We can see the garden and the main house through the window behind her. Her hair is up in a messy bun. She's wearing a navy long-sleeve top under a navy gillet, with a wool scarf around her neck. She's sitting slightly turned away, both arms wrapped around her. What is a gillet? Have you tried the strawberry vanilla? Emma asks. I think I have. I think my last grocery order, the one I wanted, got swapped with strawberry vanilla. And if memory serves, it was very good. I really liked it. Man, you're making me want one. I really don't know what a gillet is, but I can guess by her posture, like arms wrapped around herself, she's probably feeling guarded and bracing herself for whatever they're going to be asking her. Nick Vincent, producer, off screen. Since we last spoke, we've interviewed Shirley Booker. Mara Howard, flashing him a look. Not that old hag. Nick Vincent, producer. And she says that of the 3 of you, Amelie hated Luke the most. Do you remember it that way? Mara, looking dismissive. She never came to the house, so I don't know how come she's so knowledgeable all of a sudden. Nick Vincent. She got it from your mother. Mara. So she says. Mum's not exactly in any state to contradict her now, is she? Nick Vincent. You're saying she's wrong. Amelie didn't hate him? So for anybody who doesn't remember, Caroline is now much older with Alzheimer's, so her memory is a little bit fuzzy. They haven't interviewed her up to this point because she's really not reliable as a witness. So that's what she's saying about being in a state to contradict her. You're saying she's wrong. Amelie didn't hate him? Mara shrugs. I'm not saying she liked him, but we were just kids. None of it really meant anything. And we all really loved Dad. We were broken up when he died. So to be honest, we'd probably have hated anyone Mum married, especially so soon after. Nick Vincent. The team now think Luke may have been a con man, that he may have defrauded several other women. Mara. If you say so. Nick Vincent. You seem surprisingly unfazed about it. Mara shrugs. I didn't like him, but he probably didn't deserve the crap he got from us kids. He was always really nice to Mum. She catches her breath, suddenly emotional. Okay, so back then I didn't want him around, but looking back at it now, it would have been so much better if he hadn't died. Mum was never really happy again after that. Looks away, her eyes filling with tears. Nick Vincent. I also wanted to ask you about the therapy. Mara, getting to her feet and pulling off the mic. I am absolutely not going to talk to you people about that. She throws down the mic and walks away. That was a That was an intense reaction. She could have just said, like I did, I'm not prepared to talk about that. I'm not comfortable. To throw her mic like that? When she knew it was coming, by the way. We read the text message between her and Amelie at the end of last episode, and they knew that the producers were going to bring up therapy. So it's not like this came as a surprise. But for her to have such a vehement reaction to something she knew was coming, I'm liking Mara more and more for this. I don't know how she is involved. And I would really hate to blame such a young kid at the time of committing a murder. She's hiding something. Let's just leave it at that. I don't want to throw wild accusations, but oh boy. Cut to studio. Team now around the table. Layla Furness. I find the Howard family dynamics endlessly fascinating. Looking slightly embarrassed. Sorry. I know that sounds rather insensitive and rather off the point. Bill Serafini. I think it's the whole point. Hugo Fraser. Stating the obvious, I know, but it doesn't look like we're going to get anywhere pushing the family on the therapy issue. Layla Furness. Which is only to be expected. Giving an arch look at Nick behind the camera. Though it might have helped if Mr. Vincent had been a tad more sensitive. J.J. Norton. The thing that fascinates me is the psychology of this Luke person, whatever his real name is. Is it just me, or is anyone else wondering whether the relationship with Caroline might have been rather different from previous ones? Alan Canning. In the sense that... JJ. In the sense that he wasn't just really nice to her, he actually married her. Con men like that tend to fleece women and move on, don't they? You don't need to bother with the legals to achieve that. Indeed, I'd argue it just makes things a whole lot more complicated and far more likely to attract unwelcome attention from the powers that be. Mitchell Clark. We don't know he didn't marry any of the others. Bill Serafini. JJ's right, though marriage leaves a paper trail. He'd be much easier to track down. Alan Canning. Only if you knew the name he was going under at the time. Bill Serafini. True. Hugo Fraser. In my experience, swindlers who actually marry the women they're conning. My word. In my experience, swindlers who actually marry the women they're conning do it precisely because of the legals, i.e. to put themselves in line to inherit their property, including any life insurance, which they've often taken out without the wife's knowledge. I prosecuted a case exactly like that only last year. J.J. Norton. You're talking about a different sort of con man there, though, aren't you? A con man who wants to inherit is a con man who intends to kill. Like the man who murdered that novelist, Helen something. Mitchell Clark. Helen Bailey. Now he was a nasty piece of work. Layla Furness. Just to interject, psychologically speaking, a con man of that kind would be a very different personality type. And just like Mitch said, we don't know Luke didn't marry other women. In fact, how do we know he didn't murder them? I mean, he could have, right? He could have been planning to kill Caroline for all we know. Hugo Fraser looks around the table. Do we know if Caroline, or indeed Luke, took out any new life insurance policies after the marriage? Nick Vincent, producer, off screen. I've already asked Guy that, and he says not. Hugo Fraser. In that case, I think it's unlikely he was planning to murder her. They'd been married more than a year. He'd have had plenty of time to get the financial side of things in place, if he really did intend to kill her. Emma says, looks like a gillet is a vest of sorts. Okay, that makes sense. In the sense that I can picture it, not in the sense that the word makes any sense. Man, oh man. I always thought a vest was called a waistcoat in England. But maybe that's for men. Maybe a gillet is the woman's version. I am so American. Painfully American. Oh well, thanks for looking that up, Emma. Mitchell Clark. Perhaps he had a change of heart. He may have conned women in the past, but this time it was the real thing. Maybe he married her because he actually loved her. Layla Furness, smiling at him. You old romantic, you. Bill Serafini, shaking his head. Nice try, Midge, but I don't buy it. Hugo Fraser. There is one other possibility. Maybe he realized he stood to gain more by playing a long game. I mean, all he had to do was sit on his hands and wait for Florence Ryder to die, the old lady, and he'd be in quids again. Mitchell Clark. I think you could be onto something there. Maybe that's what made it different this time. Layla Furness. But we're just spinning on nothing, without some actual facts about this man. Alan Canning. Precisely. So, Bill, have you discovered anything more since we last got together? Did New York's finest come up with the goods? Bill Serafini. I was just getting to that. Gets up and goes to the board. Emma says genuine or crocodile tears. Oh, for Mara? I was wondering. For her to be overcome with emotion that hasn't really been in her character so far. So that's a good, I'm actually going to write that down. Thank you for mentioning that. Let's get my mouse working here. There we go. We're going to go over to Mara's suspect section. Tears, let's see, gets emotional during interview in episode 4. Seems uncharacteristic. Can I spell? There we go. And would not talk about therapy. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to add to the clue board as we go. Bill Serafini. I was just coming to that. Gets up and goes to the board. I got lucky. One of the detectives in Manhattan PD is a guy I trained back when he was just a rookie, so I called in a favor. Turns and pins up a photo. Given that our current theory is that the real Eric Fulton died sometime in the mid to late 90s in New York, I got my guy to run Fulton's picture against deceased John Does in the city for that period, and we hit pay dirt. He gestures to the picture. It's an autopsy shot. The eyes are closed, and the face is badly bruised on one side. Remember I said I thought the real Eric Fulton might have been the victim of some sort of violence? Well, this man died as a result of a street mugging in Brooklyn in December 1994. There were no witnesses, at least none who were prepared to make a formal statement, but there was definitely some suggestion that it could have been a hate crime. The attack took place in the early hours of the morning, only a few hundred yards from a known bar. The Vic had no ID or wallet on him when he was found a couple of hours later, and despite repeated police appeals, no one came forward. As of now, he remains officially unidentified. J.J. Norton. You think it could be the real Eric Fulton, and our mystery man stole the ID off the body? I'm really struggling with his voice today, I don't know why. Bill Serafini. Has to be possible. There was more than enough time for someone to find him and go through his pockets before the cops showed up. And we know our man was nothing if not opportunistic. Look at what happened in Beirut. J.J. Norton. Did you ask NYPD to run this John Doe's DNA against Fulton's family? Bill Serafini. I did. No news yet, though. Layla Furness, still staring at the photo. He'd been living in New York for years, and yet no one appears to have noticed he was missing. Bill Serafini. Evidently not. Layla Furness. That strikes me as very sad. Bill Serafini. They may have had their reasons, but I guess we'll never know. Hugo Fraser. So you think that, as at December 1994, our mystery man started a whole new life as Eric Fulton? Bill Serafini. I don't think. I know. Because within 6 months of that John Doe's death, the hitherto Eric Fulton began a relationship with a woman. This woman. He puts up another picture. It's a clipping from a glossy magazine. The woman is late middle-aged, in a floor-length gold sequined gown, smiling and holding a glass of champagne. This is Rose Shulman at the Met Gala in May 1994. She was 56 at the time. And by the time the gala came round again, she had an escort. He pins up another photo, Shulman again, in another long gown, accompanied this time by a tall and much younger man in evening clothes. He's turned away from the camera. Layla Furness. Well, based purely on height and physique, that definitely isn't Eric Fulton of North Birmingham, Alabama. J.J. Norton. But you can't really see his face, can you? Is that deliberate, do you think? Bill Serafini. Well observed, J.J. And yes, I think it is. I did a trawl of other images of Rose at around this time, and Eric is not notable by his absence. And when he is pictured, he's clearly doing his best not to be in the shot. And as we've discussed many times before, there was no social media back then, so if you were careful, you had a pretty good chance of keeping your face out of the public eye. Raises an eyebrow, always assuming you had a good reason to want to. Alan Canning. I agree he's about the same height and build as Luke, but the hair is definitely darker and shorter. Layla Furness. But those things are easy to change, aren't they? Like wearing glasses or not. Alan Canning. I suppose so. Hugo Fraser. So what happened with Rose? I assume something did, or you wouldn't be telling us all this. Bill Serafini looks grim. In the space of 5 months, he relieved her of something in the neighborhood of $800,000, along with several pieces of heirloom jewelry she never saw again. J.J. Norton, sardonically. Nice guy. Do we know how they met? Might give us a clue about how he operated. Bill Serafini. He seems to have weaseled his way into some gallery opening she was at. Told her he was an artist. Mitchell Clark. Well, that's actually true. He was a bloody con artist. Bill Serafini. And he'd clearly done his research because the Shulman family are noted patrons of the arts and support a number of charities benefiting young painters. Hugo Fraser. You just said she never saw her jewelry again. Past tense. Bill Serafini takes a deep breath. Rose was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1996 and died 9 months later. Her family firmly believed that the stress of losing the money was a major contributing factor. She felt humiliated, not least because she thought Fulton actually cared about her. Mitchell Clark. I don't suppose any of the Shulman family were in London on October 3rd, 2003, by any chance. Bill Serafini laughs dryly. No, sadly not. And yes, we've checked. Layla Furness sighs. Another dead end. Hugo Fraser. Did your colleague at NYPD have any idea which name our man might have been going under before he became Eric Fulton? Bill Serafini. Afraid not. But safe to say they're on the case. Talking of being on the case, did you speak to the Met about getting those hairs tested, Alan? Alan Canning. I had a word with the old case unit, and they've agreed to do testing on the hair and a full DNA analysis of the clothes. But I don't hold your breath. We'll be at the back of the queue compared to live investigations. Bill Serafini, looking around. What else did we have outstanding from last time? He gets up and goes over to the whiteboard, which we now see has a list in Bill's handwriting. Camera zooms in. Ian Wilson, Australian incident / hit and run. Caroline's mystery lover. Bill Serafini. So, first up, our current name in the frame, Ian Wilson. And the news here is that Tarek has tracked down some footage of him. It's from the 90s, so not directly relevant, but it might help give us a picture of the guy. Pause. I need to sip. All this talking, man. Plus, I'm using so many muscles that I don't usually use for all these accents. I'm getting my exercise here. He nods toward the camera, and the screen on the wall comes to life. It's a clip from BBC South News. A solidly built young man with blonde hair and braces, wearing a green navy-striped rugby shirt, is being interviewed by a journalistic a journalist holding a huge gray microphone. There are 2 older people standing at his side, and behind them, another group of adults. The colors are faded and yellowish, and there are a few jumps on the film. To camera. I'm here with Ian Wilson of Sir William Penrose School in Guildford, who's just been selected to play for the England under-60s rugby side. Turning to Ian. Quite a day, Ian. You must be very excited. Ian Wilson, grinning. Yeah, I'm pretty chuffed. Journalist. I believe you've been playing rugby ever since you were at primary school? Ian Wilson, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, I used to play with my dad in the garden, and I suppose it just went from there. Journalist. This is your mum and dad with you here, am I right? They must be very proud of you. Mr. Wilson. Very proud, very proud. Ian's done terrifically well. Wilson smiles indulgently. He's an older, more florid version of his son. His wife is a much less substantial figure, clutching her handbag and smiling nervously. Ian pulls his hand through his hair again. He's starting to look rather like Boris Johnson. Journalist. And I think you have your special new shirt with you, too? Ian grins and holds up a white England shirt with a red rose on the chest. It clearly hasn't been worn yet. Journalist. And your first game is later this month, I believe. Ian Wilson, grinning again. Yeah, we're playing Scotland on the 21st. He leans forward into the camera lens, holds up a fist and roars, Stuff the jocks, yeah! Journalist, looking alarmed and turning quickly away to the camera. Well, I'm sure we all wish the team every success. Back to you in the studio. Freeze frame. Lay the furnace. For such a short clip, that was extraordinarily revealing. Hugo Fraser. Ian Wilson is a boorish, overprivileged little tosser for a start. Alan shoots him a quick glance and seems about to say something, but changes his mind. Mitchell Clark. Oh, come on. He was only a kid back then. Hugo Fraser. He was 16. People don't change much after that. Aren't I right, Layla? Lay the furnace. Well, I would agree that you rarely see profound personality shifts after that age. Not without some significant triggering event. Pause. I don't know if I agree with that. I can tell you for a fact that I am very different from my 16-year-old self. My personality, I mean, there's core elements of yourself that don't ever leave you because it's just really ingrained in your DNA. But I do think maturity can change a lot. I do think experiences can mold a lot. 16-year-old me and me now, I don't think you'd see any resemblance personality-wise. For me personally, I was very much a shell of who I am now, mostly due to a lot of bullying in high school. Not fun. Not fun. And that made me a lot more introverted than I naturally am. And once I was out of that series, what's the word I'm looking for?
Which language?
No. Sorry. I summoned Siri. That setting, it really allowed me to grow into the person I naturally am. So I agree and I disagree. I think there are core parts of you that never change, but I do think a lot of who you are can change just with time. Let me know what you guys think, though. Are you at all like your 16-year-old self? Or are you totally different? Hugo Fraser. There you are, then. JJ Norton. Either way, based on what we just saw, I reckon the grown-up Ian would have been more than capable of doing Luke some serious damage. He was a rugby player, for goodness sake. Layla Furness. I tend to agree, and if this is anything to go by, I can also see why he made such a poor impression when he turned up at the care home. Hugo Fraser, nodding. And then tried to bully Sylvia Carroll. Alan Canning, rather impatiently. None of that makes any difference. Peter Lascelles specifically told us that Wilson had an alibi. He's out of the picture. This is a dead horse, and I can't for the life of me understand why we're still flogging it. Mitchell Clark. We were told he had an alibi, but we still don't know what it was, do we? Maybe Lascelles didn't check it out that hard. Layla Furness. What did Peter say about that, Bill? You were going to speak to him, weren't you? Bill Serafini. I was, and I did. Mitchell Clark. And what did he say? Bill Serafini. Let's take a look, shall we? I'm gonna pause. The past few episodes, I have been really bad at taking a break at the hour mark, so this is the perfect time to do that. If you guys need to grab a snack, refill your beverage, now is the time to do that. We're gonna take a... Oop, come on, my mouse. We're gonna take about a 5-minute break, and then we will resume with this new interview with Bill and Peter Lascelles. See you in a minute. the mic wasn't on. The mic wasn't on. I knew I would do that. Every single time. I'm so sorry, guys. Someday I will be on the ball and I will get my act together, and that won't happen anymore. I really don't need to turn it off during the breaks because the mic isn't attached to those slides, so you wouldn't hear any audio anyway, but there's just a part of me that's scared that maybe you will. It's kind of like taking a mic if you're mic'd up for a concert and it's still on while you're backstage talking to someone and everyone can hear it. That's what my biggest fear is. That's why I keep turning it off and forgetting to turn it back on. Anyway, what I was saying was I wanted to see if there was anything we wanted to add to the clue board, but I don't think so. So before we jump into the interview, I wanted to talk to you about my YouTube membership tiers. Along with taking a break in the middle of the session, I am continually forgetting to talk about them. So let's do that now. If you didn't know, I have something called a YouTube membership. It's a little bit like Patreon, where it's a paid service, but you get perks. So the first tier is called Golden Hour Gang. It's $1.99 a month, and what you get are loyalty badges, custom emojis, priority replies, and access to exclusive polls where you can help shape upcoming videos. Basically, you become part of the creative process. There's also the Daydreamer Society tier, which is $4.99 a month. Along with everything mentioned in the first tier, you'll also get behind-the-scenes photos, status updates, and a monthly members-only live chat where we can hang out in real time. Until we get more members, I'm doing more of a monthly vlog instead of a live chat, but as we gain more members, I do want a live stream, a members-only live stream to be incorporated. I think that would be really fun. It's something that I've been craving. Meet and greets are so hard to organize because everybody lives in different places. It's hard to get everybody in one place, but in this way, virtually, it would be very easy. So the more members we get, the more a live chat is an option. Either way, even with the monthly vlog, it's going to be a very cozy girl talk, life updates with a mug of something warm. I tend to chat a lot more in those monthly membership vlogs because I'm not making stuff for the masses. I'm making it for you guys. And I also tend to share a lot of secrets over there. The vlog that just went up the vlog for November talks about me joining a singles group, and I chat all about that, and I won't be chatting about that in a normal vlog, so there's a lot of members only perks available. Including that, you also get access to custom emojis. So the more members we get, the more emojis we can add. Right now, I'm allowed to have 4 of them. Around Christmas time, I'll try to see if it'll let me exchange the pumpkin for something more holiday. But right now, you get access, if you're a member, to an iced coffee, a stack of books, a teapot, and a pumpkin. You also will get a custom loyalty badge next to your name. So that will look like something different depending on how long you've been a member. A new member will get a coffee bean. A 1-month member will get a bag of coffee, not a literal bag of coffee, a picture of one. Then 2 months, you'll get an iced coffee. 6 months, a hot coffee. 1 year, some latte art. 2 years, we shift from the coffee theme to a book theme. You get a bookmark. At 3 years, you'll get an open book with magic sparkles coming out of it. And at 4 years, you'll get a stack of books with twinkle lights. All very fun and special, and my main goal for this is to offer something more intimate. With my normal content, I tend to be more curated. There's a formula I follow. Yes, it's all genuine and everything from my real life, but you have to pace things better. You have to really tell a story and worry about that to keep people's attention. But with monthly videos, I don't worry about any of that. You guys get a lot of chats. You get a little more raw footage, things that I wouldn't necessarily share with the masses. So you guys are a special crew. Just wanted to mention that before we continue, in case you didn't know it existed or had been thinking about joining but weren't sure if it was worth it. hopefully that helps you make a decision one way or the other. Now, thank you for your patience. Let's dive in to the interview. Bill is sitting in a pub with Peter Lascelles. He has a pint of bitter in a jug glass. Bill has a bourbon on the rocks. Bill Serafini. I still don't get the Brit thing with warm beer. Peter Lascelles, smiling. Now, wait a minute. Is Peter Lascelles... What accent is he... does he have? Let's see. I forget who Peter is. Is he British or American? I feel like we've talked to Peter too, and I totally forget. Must be English, because he's talking to Bill about the Brit thing. Peter Lascelles, smiling. It's all part of the package. Goes along with the stiff upper lip and the bad teeth. Bill laughs. So, you wanted to ask me about Ian Wilson's alibi. Of course, there's only so much... Oh, no, sorry. Bill laughs, and then Peter says, so you wanted to ask me about Ian Wilson's alibi. Of course, there's only so much I'm at liberty to say, given it's still an open case. Bill Serafini. Understood. Peter. But this much I can tell you. As we discussed before, we did investigate Margaret and Ian Wilson in 2003, as both clearly had a prima facie motive for wanting Luke Ryder dead. The real Luke Ryder, needless to say. Takes a deep breath. Taking them in turn, I'm sure you understand me if I say that, theoretically speaking, of course, a middle-aged woman who was suffering from severe arthritis would be an unlikely suspect for the murder of a very fit 26-year-old male. Peter Serafini. We don't know how old he actually is, of course, but point taken. However, and likewise purely hypothetical, there'd be nothing to stop someone in that state of health from getting another person to commit the crime on her behalf, especially someone close to her, who also stood to gain financially, like her own kid. I'm just checking my mic is on. I have a complex about it now. Peter Lascelles. Of course. And any competent police officer would conduct their inquiries accordingly. Such a child would be investigated and his or her alibi verified. Bill Serafini. And Peter Lascelles. Well, as you well know, Bill, some alibis are harder to verify than others. Especially if, by the time you speak to the person in question, they're no longer in the country. What? Bill Serafini. And I guess in those circumstances you'd want to establish exactly when they left. As in, did they leave before or after the date of the crime? Peter Lascelles. Precisely. And in our hypothetical case, it was 3 days after the murder. 3 days after the murder? Bill Serafini. And wouldn't that timeline strike you as suspicious? Might it make you think they were fleeing the jurisdiction? Peter Lascelles. Clearly, that would have been an important consideration. And even if the person concerned had insisted that they'd been planning that particular trip for some time, that would have been hard to verify. 20 years ago, travel documentation wasn't digitized like it is now. Bill Serafini. And in any case, he'd still need an alibi for the night in question. Peter Lascelles. Right. But again, there was a lot less technical evidence to draw back on in the day. There weren't many CCTV cameras, even in the city centres, and only a very few mobile phones had GPS tracking, so almost all alibis relied on human beings, not digital data. Bill Serafini nodding. And unlike machines, people can lie. And even if they think they're telling the truth, their memories can still deceive them. Eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable. Peter Lascelles. I agree, though when a suspect offers an alibi witness who allegedly spent several hours with them on the evening of the crime, then the evidence provided should, in theory, be a lot more solid. Always assuming, of course, that the witness hasn't mistaken the day, either accidentally or, of course, deliberately. Bill Serafini. So are we talking a one-off encounter on that particular day, or an ongoing relationship of some kind? Peter Lascelles. For the purposes of our hypothetical case, let's assume it was a woman the person in question met at a bar, and then spent the night with. Bill Serafini, nodding. Okay. And I see why that may be hard to substantiate in terms of an exact date, unless they paid by credit card or went to a hotel. Peter Lascelles. I think you should assume they didn't. Peter Serafini. Oh, Peter. I'm getting the names and the accents mixed up. Oh boy. Bill Serafini. Can I ask how old this hypothetical woman was? Peter Lascelles. Let's say in her 40s. Bill Serafini. Right, okay. Let's park our hypothetical case for a moment and focus on the real one. Wilson's in his 20s, right? Good-looking guy, too. So if he'd got hot and heavy with a lady of a certain age, I can easily see him charming her into slipping him a fake alibi. He continues to speak over reconstruction. Video only, no audio. Ian is in bed with an older woman. They talk. She smiles, then nods her head. He asks her casually while they're still in bed if she can do him a favor. It's no biggie, just the spot of bother he can't be bothered dealing with, so if anyone comes asking, she can tell them their night of passion was actually the day before. She'd just had the best night of her life that she can remember since way back when, so maybe she thinks, why not? And by the time she realizes she's gone and got herself tangled up in a murder inquiry, Mr. Smooth is long gone and she's way too terrified to change her story and tell the truth. Peter Lascelles reaches for his beer. You certainly tell a good tale, Bill. Ever thought of writing a novel? You could give that Ian Rankin bloke a run for his money. Bill Serafini, smiling. Thanks. But do you think it's plausible? As a scenario. Peter Lascelles. Only too plausible. And, hypothetically speaking, we would certainly have put exactly that version of events to the witness. Bill Serafini. But she wouldn't budge. And never has since, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. Peter Lascelles. You might think so. I couldn't possibly comment. I'm really loving the fact that they're having an entire hypothetical conversation, but actually feeding them information. Themselves information. Thank you. I know my sound was missing. I have the worst habit of turning off my mic during a break, either before going live or during a Be Right Back segment, and then just forgetting to turn it back on. Someday I'll learn, but thank you to those of you who will comment and tell me that my sound is off. You are the best. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ay. Bill Serafini. And I'm guessing this night of passion was too far from London for our man to be in two places at the same time. Peter Lascelles. Fair enough, I'd imagine. Bill Serafini. And I'm likewise guessing you never had probable cause to compel him to supply DNA or prints? Peter Lascelles. Again, you might very well think so. Pause. Are you planning on doing any sightseeing while you're over here, Bill? Bill Serafini. Well, Peter Lascelles. There are always some great places to visit, and not too far from London. Far enough, though, if you catch my drift. Like Salisbury, for example? Bill Serafini frowns a moment. Then realization dawns. Oh, you mean that place where those two Ruskies tried to off that defector? Sergei or something? Peter Lascelles. Skripal. And then claimed they were only to look at the cathedral. Yeah, right, as my grandchildren would say. Yeah, right. Yeah. Bill Serafini. I'm still not sure why. Peter Lascelles. There's a nice little B&B I would definitely recommend you try. The woman who owns it, I met her, it must be very nearly 20 years ago now. Bill Serafini, slowly. Right, I get you. Sounds like it's definitely worth my time. Okay, before I do that, before I continue, I want to write down some information on our clue board. So who are we talking about again? We're talking about the Wilsons Ian Wilson. That's it. Okay, I'm going to add him to our suspect list. Anybody have a problem with that? Hopefully not. Ian Wilson. Clues. Rugby player in his 20s. Has maybe fake alibi for time of murder. Claims to have been with an older woman. 40s. That same night. Left the country. Was that right? Left the country? Or was it just the... let me see. Planning a particular trip. 3 days after the murder. I'm trying to find the exact wording in the interview. Hypothetical case was 3 days after the murder. We'll just say left on a trip. Left a trip 3 days after the murder. Claims trip was previously planned. There we go. Okay. What color should we make his suspect tab here? Rugby. The only rugby colors I can think of is from Friends. When Ross is trying to get the attention of that Russian girl. If anybody has watched Friends before. Let's see. We'll just do like a... maybe this. We don't have that color yet. Let's do that. And that'll be Ian Wilson. I just wanted to write that down because that seemed worth noting. Okay. Back to the interview. So, Peter has just told Bill that he needs to go take a little trip to a B&B where a woman owns it. Someone he met about 20 years ago. The cold case, the murder, happened 20 years ago. Sounds like it's definitely worth my time. Peter Lascelles, I'm sure you won't regret it. Smiling. And the cathedral really is quite something. Cut to studio. Hugo Fraser, I assume you took the hint, Bill? I mean, he was clearly marking your card. Bill Serafini, I certainly did, Hugo. And he certainly was. Grins. And he was right about that old church, too. Cut to footage of Bill sitting at a cafe table with a view across an expanse of grass to Salisbury Cathedral. The sun is shining, but it's obviously cold as he's wearing a leather coat as well as the trademark sunglasses. There's a woman sitting opposite him who has her back to the camera. We can see she's slim, with well-cut short hair, which has been professionally highlighted. She's wearing a chocolate-colored faux fur jacket. Subcaption, Christine. Bill Serafini. I guess I should start out by saying that you've agreed to speak to us as long as we protect your identity, which is why we're calling you Christine. Pause. You're not really protecting her identity because you already know that she owns a B&B in a specific place. It wouldn't take a genius to go look up all the B&Bs in that area and track her down. Especially if you're showing us the back of her, showing her hair and everything. That's not very... You should have... They should have... You. As if you're the problem. They should have done something like blurred her whole silhouette or done that Have you seen on the news where they make someone look almost like a shadow, so you don't get to see any part of them? I feel like they could have done a lot better job at protecting her identity, but that's just me. Maybe I'm nitpicking. I guess I should start out by saying that you agreed to speak to us as long as we protect your identity, which is why we're calling you Christine. And the reason why we want to talk to you is because you were the woman who gave an alibi for the night of October 3rd, 2003 to Ian Wilson. Christine. Yes, I did. Bill Serafini. Can you take us through that evening? Christine, laughing, a husky smoker laugh. Well, I'm not sure quite how much detail you want me to go into. Bill Serafini, with a wry smile. Let's keep it family friendly. Christine. Okay, so I was working in a bar in town back then. I'm trying to figure out her accent. How do I want her to sound? I'm having trouble with like the husky sound. Okay, so I was working in a bar in town back then. It's long gone now, but it was quite a hip place back in the day. I was the manager, so I wasn't front of the house the whole time, but I was obviously in and out throughout the evening. Bill Serafini. And that's how you met Ian? Christine. Right, he stood out, to be honest. You don't get many guys turning up alone. They're mostly with their girlfriends or with mates, not alone. A couple of girls had a go at getting his attention as the evening wore on, but he didn't seem interested. Laughs. In fact, I was beginning to wonder if he wasn't into them, though I didn't know what he was doing in our gaff if he was. Not with other sort of bars, being only 50 yards down the street. Bill Serafini. So what happened? Christine. Around midnight, I went outside for a cigarette. It was bloody freezing, but we didn't allow smoking inside, so I didn't have a choice. A couple of minutes later, there he was. Bill Serafini. He was having a smoke too. Christine. No, I offered him one, but he said he didn't. Said he just wanted some fresh air. Bill Serafini. What name did he give you? Christine. Ian. Bill Serafini. That's all? Christine. Just Ian. I never knew his surname. Bill Serafini. So what happened next? We got to talking, and I let slip. I was a bit of a bummer working on my birthday. It was a bit of a bummer working on my birthday, and he insisted on buying me a glass of champagne. We weren't supposed to drink when we were working, but I reckon I deserved it. Bill Serafini. So you went back inside? Christine. Right. And he gets the fizz. Bill Serafini. Don't tell me. Paying cash? Christine. Yep. And then we sit down at the bar, and all of a sudden, this hen party arrives. A whole bunch of girls with flicky hair and tiaras and skirts up over their knickers, and I thought, oh, well, it was nice while it lasted. But it did. Last. I mean, he didn't seem interested in them. We moved over to a table, and one thing led to another, and we ended up back in my flat. Bill Serafini. And you're sure he was with you all night? Christine laughs again. Oh, yes. I don't think either of us got much sleep. Bill Serafini. And I guess the fact that it was your birthday meant you were pretty certain of the date when the police came calling? Christine. Do you remember your 40th? Oh, wait, wrong accent. Do you remember your 40th? Bill Serafini. Certainly do. Christine. Right. And I bet mine was way more memorable than yours. No offense. Bill Serafini, shaking his head and grinning. None taken. Christine. So yeah, I didn't have any problem remembering. And don't forget, it was only a couple of weeks later that the coppers came calling. Bill Serafini. Wouldn't other bar staff have remembered him as well? Christine. They definitely recognised him, but they couldn't be sure if it was the Friday or the Saturday, just that it was the weekend. Bill Serafini. I see. So when you spoke to the police, how was the identity confirmed? Christine. Peter showed me a photo. Looked like something off a passport. Bill Serafini. Peter Lascelles, the senior investigating officer? Christine. Right. Bill Serafini. And you were 100% sure it was the same man you spent that evening with? Christine. Absolutely. Cut to studio. Bill is still at the whiteboard. J.J. Norton. So, if we believe this Christine, Ian Wilson couldn't have been the killer. Bill Serafini. Right. Layla Furness. And did you believe her? Bill Serafini. Actually, I did. She kept eye contact with me the whole time, no rapid blinking, none of the usual bodily indicators for lying. So, to sum up, I think we need to park the Ian thing for now, pending any further evidence at any rate. Alan Canning, under his breath. Thank goodness for that. Bill Serafini. So next up, Down Under. Mitch, anything more on the Sydney angle? Mitchell Clark. Nothing new, I'm afraid, though. What I did do was do a trawl of the UK press from around the time Caroline and Luke got married, basically to see how easy it might have been for the family of the hit-and-run victim to track him down. And this is what I found. Cut to montage of press release. Caroline Howard and Luke Ryder planning an intimate wedding at home. Let me show you, if I can, if it will focus. There we go. You can kind of see it that way. There's some newspaper clippings that I'm reading off of. Forthcoming marriages. Mr. L. Ryder and Mrs. C.J. Howard. The engagement is announced between Luke, son of the late Brian and Maureen Ryder of Calgary, Western Australia, and Caroline, widow of Andrew Howard. Joy as Ryder weds his sweet Caroline. Mitchell Clark. There was also coverage when they attended a charity gala at Holland Park, which was only 6 weeks before the murder, though I couldn't find very much by way of pictures, either of the wedding or later, and what I did find were mostly of her, not him. Layla Furness. Our man avoiding being photographed again? Mitchell Clark. Could be, but it does show us that as long as you had a name, there were enough mentions of Ryder in the press for someone to track him down. There were even references to him being Australian. Bill Serafini. Okay, noted, thank you. So next up, Caroline's not-so-mystery lover. Alan. Ooh, we haven't gotten any information about the lover yet. I'm interested. Alan Canning. Actually, I think I've finally made some progress. I've tracked down the owner of a red MGB, which might fit the bill. I've only spoken to them on the phone, but it sounds promising. Bill Serafini. I'm impressed. So who is this guy? Oh. It's not a man, Alan Canning says. She was living in the W8 area at the time and often lent her car to her brother. Oh! Hugo Fraser. What's her name? Alan Canning, without looking at him. I'd rather not say right now. Not till I've done some more lead work. So this lady's brother could be our potential mystery man? Hugo Fraser, frowning. Sounds a bit flaky to me. Mitchell Clark, laughing. Easy, Tiger. Anyone would think you had something to hide. Hugo Fraser, quickly. Well, you should know. Mitchell Clark. Oh, well, you should know. Mitchell Clark. What's that supposed to mean? Bill Serafini, intervening. Hey, I'm sure Hugo was just referring to the fact that you were in the crosshairs yourself on this case for a while, weren't you, Mitch? Right, Hugo? Neither man says anything. There's an awkward pause. Then, suddenly, the sound of movement from behind the camera. Nick Vincent appears in shot. He's tanned and wearing an open-neck white shirt. A moment later, he's followed by someone else, a newcomer. He's slight, with longish dark hair, glasses, and a gray marl t-shirt with a UCLA logo on the front. He's clutching a laptop and a pile of papers. He looks a little uncomfortable. Nick Vincent, producer. Okay, guys, I think this might be a good time to bring you all up to speed on something Tarek's been working on. We've heard his name mentioned more than once over the course of the series, but up till now, he's always been on the other side of the camera. But this time, he gets to be on screen, because he's come up with some pretty exciting stuff. Tarek Osman, pushing his glasses up his nose. No pressure, hey, Nick? Nick Vincent, producer. Don't do yourself down, kid. Anyway, I'll leave it to you to explain. Nick goes round the table to perch against the windowsill, tapping Tarek lightly on the arm as he passes. Close up on Tarek as he pulls out a chair and sits down. Tarek Osman, fiddling with the laptop and papers. Okay, so me and the team have done some more digging. Let me see. I almost want to do a different accent with him. We've done so many British ones, but I am not great at Scottish or Irish. And I don't want to offend anybody by doing a terrible job, but I can't think of any other accent to give him, so we're gonna try. Okay, so me and the team have done some more digging on Luke Ryder to see whether we could find out anything more about his past. And we managed to turn up something interesting about when he was on Issos. Footage of Tarek on location in Greece, panorama across the harbour, fishing boats, quayside taverns, brightly coloured houses, and blue hills beyond. Cut to Tarek walking up a street, flowering creeper up the walls, a cat blinking in the sun, tables and chairs outside a bar. He stops outside and turns to camera. He's not wearing sunglasses and is squinting slightly. Tarek Osman, you probably remember that Rupert Howard didn't have any pictures of himself and Luke from the summer they met here, and we weren't able to find anything useful online either. So we decided it might be worth coming over and actually talking to people. Cut to interior of bar. Tarek is with a man in his 40s. The walls are painted teal blue, with a whitewashed floor and white wooden furniture. Tarek Osman, I'm here with George Nicolaides, who took over the bar from his father 10 years ago. I think I'm right in saying that you weren't in Assos the summer Luke Ryder was working here. George Nicolaides, speaking perfect English with a slight American accent. No, I was at university then and took the summer off to go travelling. Tarek Osman, and looking around, you've clearly had the bar refurbed since 1998. George Nicolaides, right, we've completely remodeled it when I took over. It had a much more traditional look under my paps. Tarek Osman, almost unrecognisable from what it is now, right? George Nicolaides, laughing. You could say that. Paps was a terrible hoarder. He wouldn't throw anything away until it fell apart. By the end, none of the furniture matched, and he had posters up that were older than me. But that turned out to be helpful in the end. For you, I mean. Tarek Osman. Yes, talk us through that bit. George Nicolaides. This is what the place looked like before we started the refurbishments. He passes over a photo. Camera zooms in on to show the bar with a corkboard behind it, pinned with layers of beer mats, taxi flyers, post-its, and photos, many of them curling at the edges. As you can see, a lot of that stuff was years old. Tarek Osman, but you didn't throw it away. When you did the refurb, I mean. George Nicolaides, no, we boxed it up and gave it to my paps. He'd never forgive me if I dumped it. Tarek Osman, which is why we have him to thank for these. Cut to sequence of 3 stills. The first is of Luke and Rupert Howard, their arms around each other's shoulders, clearly quite drunk. Someone has scrawled Esos Amigos in biro across the bottom. The second photo is of the bar. It's late in the evening and the lighting is low. Rupert can be seen at one of the tables with a group of lads his age, glass in hand, slightly red-faced. Further back, and not so visible, Luke is sitting at a table with a woman. She's in her 40s with short dark hair. Only part of her face is visible. In the third picture, she and Luke are standing in sunlight in the street outside the bar. She's wearing sunglasses and a hat. He has an arm round her, pulling her quite close. She's smiling up at him, one hand touching his hair. The picture appears to have been taken from inside the bar, without either of them being aware of it. There's no one else visible in the picture. Camera pans out to the 2 men looking at the photos on the table. Tarek Osman, do you have any idea who this woman is? George Nicolaides, I'm afraid not. Like I said, I was away that summer. I did speak to Paps about it, and he remembered her face, but not her name. He said she was pretty. Oh, he was pretty sure she was English and was renting a flat in town somewhere, but that's all I've managed to find out. Cut to studio. The team shifts slightly in their seats. This is a lot of new information to digest on the fly. Pause. So, instead of Ian Wilson, the rugby player, being with this B&B owner lady, was it Luke instead? that could mean that Luke had already... I'm going to hold my thoughts until we read more, but that's interesting. Was his previous identity Ian Wilson? Or was he just posing as him? But that wouldn't make sense because he was with Rupert at the time, and Rupert would know if he was going by a different name. He knew him as Luke then. I'm confused. Let's keep reading. Tarek Osman. Do you have any idea who this woman is? George Nicolaitis. Oh, no, wait, sorry. We read that already. Cut to studio. The team shifts slightly in their seats. This is a lot of new information to digest on the fly. Tarek Osman. We also spoke to some of the older residents while we were in ASOS, and one old lady thought the woman might have been called Irene, but someone else came up with Carrie, so your guess is as good as mine. Layla Furness. But if she was renting a place, there must have been some sort of paperwork. Tarek Osman. Probably, but it's so long ago, it'd be a miracle if anyone still had it. In any case, rentals like that can be pretty informal in Greece. Hugo Fraser. For which read, to avoid tax. Bill Serafini. But it does give us another potential victim of Luke's scams, and another set of suspects who might have wanted to track him down. Layla Furness to Tarek. What about Rupert? Did he remember this woman? Tarek Osman sighs and shakes his head. You'd have thought he might, but wouldn't you? Or that the photo might have triggered something, but sadly not. He said he had a vague memory of seeing her around, but absolutely no sense there was anything going on between her and Luke. Layla Furness. Though, like he said, it's a very long time ago. If she was in her 40s, then she'd be over 60 now. Alan Canning. And near nigh impossible to track down. It'd be yet another complete waste of bloody time. And that's assuming there was some sort of relationship between them, which I'm very far from convinced was actually the case. Not on the basis of one bloody photo. Bill Serafini. I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't know about you, Alan. He gestures at the third photo where it's pinned on the board. But I don't behave like that with random women I meet in bars. Alan Canning, getting tetchy. Maybe you don't, but some men do, especially selfish people like this Luke bloke clearly was. Layla Furness under her breath. Wow, that escalated quickly. Nick Vincent, producer. Okay guys, let's not get too hung up on it at this stage. There's plenty of other leads we still haven't fully run down. Bill Serafini. Fair enough, you're in charge. Nick Vincent. In fact, I think there's one more thing we need to share with you. The team exchanged glances. Now what? Mitchell Clark, with rather forced jocularity. So what else have you been holding out on? Nick Vincent. Not holding out exactly, Mitch. It's something Fabio found. J.J. Norton, frowning. Fabio, as in the film editor? Nick Vincent. Exactly. Tarek opens his laptop. The screen on the far wall pings to life. Tarek Osman. Okay, so a while back, Guy gave us some old family sign films to use for fillers. We digitized them all, but to be honest, we didn't think they'd tell us much. Useful background footage, obviously, but it was more a production job than a research one, hence it being Fabio who found it rather than me. He taps the keyboard, and as he does so, Nick comes forward and stands to the right of the screen. The footage starts to play. It's of Caroline and Andrew's wedding. Slightly jumpy, the color faded, and there's no sound. They're pictured on the steps of Chelsea Old Town Hall, then sitting together at the reception, drinking a toast and cutting the cake. Andrew Howard is the first husband of Caroline, remember. Rupert's father. They look self-conscious and it feels a little staged. Then the scene shifts to the honeymoon. White sand and palm trees. The camera pans across, a little unsteadily, to show couples on the beach and in the sea, and then Caroline, sitting on a towel, applying sun lotion. She's wearing large mirrored sunglasses and a rather old-fashioned looking one-piece suit. Guy Howard off-camera laughing. As usual, Mum's the only one not in a bikini. She hated the things. The girls bought one for her birthday once, but she refused to wear it. Tarek Osmond, pushing his glasses up his nose. Actually, I think we may be about to find out why. The screen now shows Caroline in a hotel bedroom. The mood is very different, more intimate, more playful. She's sitting on the bed with her back to us, drying her hair, dressed only in her underwear, but she's holding a mirror and we can see Andrew's reflection as he films her. After a moment or two, she turns laughing and puts her hand out and pushes the camera away. The lens dips, turns upside down, and then the screen goes blank. The whole sequence takes only a few seconds. Tarek presses pause, then looks around the table. Mitchell Clark. Is there supposed to be something there? Because I didn't see it. Tarek rewinds and plays the last scene again, freezing it a few frames before the end, then zooming in on Caroline. Layla Furness, starting. Is that what I think it is? J.J. Norton, nodding slowly. It most certainly is. Mitchell Clark. Care to share? Because I'm still blanking. J.J. Norton, getting up and going over to the screen. To be fair, it's not that easy to see, not unless you know what you're looking for. This line here, just above her knicker line, that's a post-operative scar. Post-operative scar. Mitchell Clark. What, she had an appendectomy? Something like that? Alan Canning, shaking his head. No, it's not that. I've seen those before in PMs. It's from a cesarean. Mitchell Clark, as realization dawns. She had a baby, and before she married Andrew Howard. Tarek Osmond. Ooh, oh wait, before she married Andrew. Oh. Well, let's just pause a minute. We're going to add that to the clue board for sure. All right, Caroline. Had a child before marriage to Andrew Howard. Cesarean scar. I'm intrigued. How about everybody else? That's, man, the twists and turns just keep coming, but I love it. I'm here for it. Tarek Osmond. That's the obvious conclusion, yes. Of course, we haven't had access to her medical records, and we're not likely to get it. There's a sudden commotion. The camera swings round, and there's a brief, slightly out-of-focus image of Guy. He looks horror-struck. Then he turns away, and the camera loses sight of him. There's the sound of footsteps, and a door slamming. Nick Vincent, producer. Sorry, everyone. I think this has come as rather a bolt from the blue for Guy. Layla Furness, looking at Nick, clearly shocked. He didn't know. Hugo Fraser, sardonically, under his breath. Evidently not. Layla Furness, to Nick. And you didn't think you should have talked to him? Warn him about what you found and what it implied? I mean, leaving aside the small fact that he's supposed to be the director of this thing, to spring something like that on him on camera? Hugo Fraser, exactly. Staring at Nick. How would you like to be ambushed like that? The guy has a brother or sister he never even knew he had. Bill Serafini. Okay, I think we can all agree the reveal was a touch crass, but the info's still a game changer, right? Nick Vincent, smiling, not very pleasantly. Certainly is, Bill. Certainly is. Fade out. End credits. I'm flabbergasted and have so many questions. Man, every single episode leaves us on a cliffhanger in the best way. Okay, there are a few emails we need to read. Let's get through those. Importance. Hi. From Alan Canning to Nick Vincent. Cece, Guy Howard, Hugo Fraser, Mitch Clark, Layla Furness, Bill Serafini, J.J. Norton. Subject. Your approach. Nick. I'm writing to express my frustration and, frankly, irritation at the way the last episode was handled. I'm sure we all understand the need to create cliffhangers for the audience, and I accept that you did raise this explicitly at the outset. But you don't have to keep us all completely in the dark in order to achieve that. It
Makes us feel, and probably look, like idiots. I can't believe anyone would find it acceptable to be ambushed like that on TV, especially in a context where they're being presented as an expert witness. We are entitled to a degree of respect. I hope I speak for all of us when I say that I would like your assurance that this will not happen again. Alan.
Importance. Hi. From Layla Furness to Bill Serafini. Subject. Alan's email. Hi, Bill. What are your thoughts on this? Alan clearly has a point, even if he expresses it rather ponderously. Now there's a surprise. I do agree Nick is pushing it now, but not having done any TV work before, I'm reluctant to weigh in if this is just half the course. Any thoughts? L. From Bill Serafini to Layla Furness. Subject, Alan's email. Layla. In my opinion, Alan's just doing his usual blowhard stick. I'm staying well out of it. B. Importance. Hi. From Alan Canning to Nick Vincent. CC. Everybody on the team. Subject, forward, your approach.
Just checking you got this.
Nick hasn't responded. Ooh, we get more text messages between Mara and Amelie! Yes. June 7th, 2023, 5:49 p.m. Well, that was crap. What happened? Shirley Booker, that's what happened. That old cow. What's she got to do with anything? She told them that we hated Luke, or whatever his real name was. Oh. I'm afraid I got a bit teary. Hey, you okay? I guess it was the first time I'd really thought about him and how he was with Mum. I know how you felt about him back then, but he did make her happy, Anne. I know. And when you look at her now... Sad emoji. I'm so sorry, Mari. I wish there was something I could do. No, you're best out of it. I just hope Guy knows what he's putting us through for the sake of this bloody career. Yeah, right. So, maybe Mara wasn't faking the tears. If she's saying to Amelie that she got teary, I feel like she would have said something like, I faked the tears for the camera, or I put on a show. You know, she would have admitted it to her sister, I think. They're being frank enough to each other in every other aspect. I don't think she'd lie. Not to Amelie, anyway. Voicemail left for Tarek Osman by Bill Serafini. 8th of June, 2023, 9:45 a.m. Hi, Tarek, it's Bill. Can you give me a call when you get this? There's something I need your help with. Voicemail left for Tarek Osman by Nick Vincent. 9th of June, 2023, 8:03 p.m. Who's this from again? I read it and didn't process it. Nick Vincent. Okay. Hi, Tarek. It's Nick. Just to say I've seen the new stuff and it's dynamite. Brilliant work as always. Just make sure you keep it to yourself. This is absolutely need to know. So just the camera crew, okay? No one else. See you Monday. Wait, when was this? June 9th? The next day. So for the next episode, the crew is not to know... the investigative team is not to know something really big. And then we're at episode 5. Oh my goodness. This is getting so good. We're at 64% of the way through the book. We're gonna be starting episode 5 next Monday. Oh my goodness. I almost didn't live stream tonight. I was not sure if I felt up to it. It's just been a very full week. You guys will see in a vlog on Wednesday or Thursday why. But I'm so glad I did because this is amazing. I'm having a blast. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything you feel like I should add to the clue board? Any clues, weird random facts that we should write down and look at later? Anybody you feel like should be on the suspect list that isn't already, or details that we should add to the suspect list? So for instance, let's just look at it. Right now, we really don't have a lot of suspects. We have Ian Wilson. However, am I getting confused in thinking that Ian was supposed to have been with that B&B owner, but it turns out to have been Luke the whole time. And Rupert just didn't remember because he was sloshed. Mara still... I'm still holding out a vote for Mara. Mystery Caller, we have nothing new there. Rupert, I want to pin him for this for some reason, but I don't think... Well, I won't say I don't think he's guilty, because he could totally be faking having been that drunk that night to not remember what Luke was up to in order to protect himself. I'm more suspicious of Mara than I am of Rupert, but Rupert's still on my suspect list. And then Caroline, I think she's not guilty of the murder, but I am so intrigued about this child before she got married to Andrew. Not even Luke, but Andrew. Which could be interesting as to why she became a nanny. Maybe she was forced to give up the baby, and being a nanny was the closest way to be around kids again, to be a mom. Hi! I'm never free during these live streams, so I thought I'd pop in quick and say hi. Thank you so much for dropping by. I'm so glad you were able to make it, even if it was at the tail end. You're always welcome to watch after the fact and catch up, but I'm really thinking this mystery is picking up speed. Yes, it's so hard to remember everything. That's why I created the clue board, because there's just no way. There's no way we'd remember everything. Sometimes I do watch back the episodes, at least the end of it, so I can remember where we left off, because I think the MO for this is that they throw a lot at us right at the end, and then we're expected to remember it by next week, which, it doesn't really happen, because we have so much time in between episodes, but this is getting juicy, and I'm here for it. Hopefully you guys are loving it too. Like I said, we're at 64%, so we're past the halfway point now. We're getting to the end. Close, not quite. As far as what we will do after we're done solving this mystery, I have another book that I would really love to do with you all. It's a murder mystery as well, but it's a puzzle book. Apparently, I don't have it with me right now. I'll order it when we're closer to needing it. But apparently, there are actual puzzles that you need to solve, a bit like Nancy Drew, if what I looked at was correct. And then halfway through, there are different characters that you're reading, different POVs, and then there's a section where you can choose which POV you go with, and it alters how the story unfolds, which sounds amazing. So we have a lot to look forward to. We have a 20-year-old cool case to finish solving, and then we got some Nancy Drew puzzling stuff to look forward to after that. I'm so excited. I love that you all are loving Murder Mystery Mondays as much as I am, and hopefully you've been having fun. Again, whether you're watching live or rewatching after the fact, let me know if I missed anything. Let me know if there's anything I should be adding to the clue board. Let me know how you're feeling about our suspect list right now. I'm still holding out for Mara. I think she had something to do with it. Yeah, I think she knows something. And may have even committed the murder herself. Who knows? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying I have suspicions. And with that, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I will see you in a vlog on Wednesday or Thursday. And then back here for another Murder Mystery Monday next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you later. Love you guys. Mwah.